We're starting a new sermon series, and it's called Would You Rather? Would You Rather? Now, you probably don't know what Would You Rather is. Your kids would probably know, but you probably don't. Pastor Steve would probably know. He's probably played that with kids when he was children's pastor. But we play Would You Rather at camp, at Wyandotte Camp. And here's what happens a lot of times during the morning and the devotions. We give pastors that don't have a lot of experience the opportunity to speak. And boy, they don't preach 50 minutes like your pastor does. They preach about 10, and they're like, okay, we're done. And we're like, we told you to go 30. So we have 20 minutes here. You guys ready for breakfast in the kitchen? And of course, the answer is no. And so we have to stall. And when we stall, we play this game called Would You Rather? And so the way it works, we're not going to play it this way here, but the way it works is everybody, of course, is sitting down in their pews. We have them stand up, and we say, would you rather do this or do this? And if their answer is this, they all walk to this side. If their answer is that, they all walk to this side. So you have people walking back and forth. It's a very chaotic mess, but it's way less chaotic than if they're just sitting there talking and hitting each other and doing all those things. So we play that, and you don't have to tell them to sit still 732 times in that 20 minutes because they're moving and they're active. So we will say things like, I looked up some questions on the internet because I'm one of the world's worst. I hate it when services end early and I'm the one that's closing the service because I am the world's worst at would you rather. And so I looked some up last night. And I try to go for the gross ones because they're little kids, right? They love gross things. So I'll say something like, would you rather drink nasty spoiled milk, this side, or would you rather eat a rotten egg, this side? Yeah, and you're like, I don't want either, but you have to pick a side. You have to choose one or the other, and so it's always a shock to me, so I've seen my kids, and I'm like, what are you doing going over there? No, get over here. And so we'll ask them things like that. I like to ask weird questions when I have it, like, would you rather a spider be put on your face like Marv or Harry in Home Alone, or would you rather have hundreds of snakes, slithering all over your body? So I ask those kinds of questions, and they're to walk to one side. We're not going to walk today. But that's what this series is. We're going to give you a series, 4 different sermons with 2 different words each sermon. And so the question that you're to ask yourself is, which would I rather be? Would I rather be this or would I rather be this? And so today we need a good game of would you rather. Because as we look around at the church today throughout the entire world and especially the United States, we need to think long and hard about what we would rather be. Where would we rather the church be? And so today we're going to kick off this series by asking, would you rather be a fan or would you rather be a follower? In 2011, Kyle Idleman wrote a book called Not a Fan. And it's a fantastic book. I had recently rededicated my life, and it was one of the first Christian books that I read. It had a huge impact just on my life. It shocks me that it's been around as long as the book has, but it seems like just yesterday I was reading that book. But it is a powerful, powerful book, and that's what the question that he poses. One of these days I need to do a series based on that book on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night, because it's just an awesome thing. But he poses this question: are you a fan or are you a follower? So many of us think we know the answer. We say, well, of course, I'm a follower of Christ because, here I am. I'm at church today. I mean, duh. That means I'm a follower of Christ. I raised my hand that one time you asked if I wanted to accept Christ, or I walked down the aisle during the 15-minute version of Just As I Am one time back in the 80s, and that, obviously makes me a follower of Christ. I can quote all 66 books of the Bible. I can just go Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I can get all 66. That obviously makes me a follower of Christ. Don't you see my t-shirt? It's got Jesus on it. Of course I'm a follower. Don't you see my necklace? It's a cross. Of course I'm a follower of Christ. I own 4 Bibles. Doesn't that make me a follower of Christ? How about this one? Before I talk bad about somebody, I say, bless their heart. I am a follower of Christ if I do that. Otherwise, I wouldn't even care about their heart, would I? All those things are good, except maybe talking bad about people. That may not be such a good thing, but hey, at least you are saying bless their heart first. I mean, none of those things make you a follower of Christ. What makes you a follower of Christ? Let's first go to the good old-fashioned dictionary. Remember those? I didn't go to my paper one. I went to the online one. Here's what Webster Merriam says. He defines fan. I like Webster Merriam's a he. The dictionary defines fan as an enthusiastic devotee, usually as a spectator. 2, an ardent admirer or enthusiast. A fan is somebody who gets excited about something that's going on and they jump on to the bandwagon. The Chiefs have a whole lot of fans right now. Some of y'all were Chiefs fans about 10 years ago. Some of y'all were Chiefs fans about 15 years ago. There are a lot of you, not in this room. I know a lot of you have been fans of the Chiefs for a long time. There are a lot of fans who, if I said who was the quarterback before Patrick Mahomes, they'd say, there was no quarterback before Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs have never had another quarterback. They couldn't name Joe Montana, Elvis Gerbach, Alex Smith, any of those guys that came before. Why? Because the Chiefs are doing well. A lot of people have jumped on. It's enthusiastic. Listen, I'm a fan of the Kansas City Royals. I quit watching baseball in 1993 when they went on strike. 2014, I would say, whenever they went on a run, almost made the World Series. That was really maybe I've watched a few baseball games in between, maybe the World Series, but I really started watching those Royals again because they were fun to watch. They were exciting. They were doing things nobody expected them to do. They lost in the ALCS that year. Next year went on to win the World Series. You want to know how long it's been since I've watched a Royals game? Since they started losing. Why? Because I'm not really a fan of them. I was excited. If I'm cheering for somebody, I'm cheering for the Royals. But fans are fickle. Whenever things start to go bad, they're gone. Look around the stadium whenever they're losing 8-1 and see how many people are walking out. You're not there cheering for your team to come back. You've given up on them. Fans take from the people they're watching, from whatever it is that they're doing. But when they have nothing else to give, they're done with them. And so you see that a lot with fans. A fan of a sports team is excited when they do well, but when they start doing poorly, you're not watching as many games. A fan is after what they think they can get from the one watching. Here's what a follower is. Number one, A, one in the service of another. B, one that follows the opinions or teachings of another. C, one that imitates another. A follower is different than a fan because a follower is committed to the cause that they are following. They don't just watch, they're involved, they're in service. That means that they're doing whatever the person they're following or the thing they're following wants them to do. Or they're doing what the one they're following is doing. And so it's different. There's a difference between a fan, there's a difference in being a follower. Jesus doesn't want fans. He wants followers. And here's the thing, becoming a Christian is just as simple as believing and confessing that Jesus is Lord. But being a Christian is something that's different. Being a Christian, being a follower of Christ, is a lifelong commitment. It's not a one-time event. It's a lifelong commitment. And that's the difference in being a fan and being a follower. Jesus never pulled a single punch when he described what it took to follow him. He never did. He never made it look pleasant. He never made it look like it was going to be just absolute fun all the time. He was bold and he was blunt whenever he described everything the Christian walk involves. In fact, we'll see at the end of this message, Jesus would often get a crowd and he would say something that offended them and they'd just walk out on him. Why? Because they were fans and not followers. There's a difference. In Luke 9:23, we find a statement from Jesus that is repeated almost verbatim in Matthew and in Mark. And it's very clear that Jesus wants us to get this principle. Jesus wanted to make sure we heard this. Jesus wanted to make sure we got it. And so the Spirit inspired 3 different authors to record this statement. He said in Luke 9:23, "If anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." So many people live in a world where Christianity is just easy. And it's just, all I got to do is pray this prayer. I did that at camp when I was 8 years old. That's all I need to do. I'm good the rest of my life. Our picture of Christianity in the modern society today is so much different than what Jesus wanted. Today we're going to dive deep into this one verse and we're going to look at what Jesus wants from each and every one of us. And as we do that, we're going to see this is the difference between being a fan of Jesus and being a follower. First of all, to whom does he offer the opportunity to follow him? If anyone, well, I'm too far gone. You can't understand the sins that I've done. You don't know all the things that I've done in my life. You don't know my past. You don't know my history. If anyone, it doesn't matter how far we've strayed from him. He wants everyone to come to him. And so it doesn't matter what we've done. It doesn't matter who we've hurt. It doesn't matter what we wear. It doesn't matter how pretty we are. It doesn't matter how ugly we are. It doesn't matter how young we are. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter how rich we are. It doesn't matter how poor we are. The color of our skin, the language we speak, None of that matters. He wants everyone to come to Him. Anyone will come after me. Doesn't matter if we're here legally, doesn't matter if we're here illegally. None of that matters to Jesus. He wants everyone to come to Him. Anyone can come to Him. He says anyone. Okay, so maybe I'm qualified to serve Him. What do I have to do? He says, if anyone would come after me. So what do we have to do? We have to go after Him. We have to follow Him. His call is not just to come to Him, but His call is to go after Him, to follow Him. And you've seen me do this a million times with sin. But it's the same way with Jesus. It implies we're going in this direction. Jesus is going this way. If we're going to come to Him, if we're going to follow Him, what do we got to do? We got to turn around. We got to walk away from the direction that we're going, and we have to go in a different direction. So many times when we're doing altar calls, we'll say, come to Jesus. And that's important. That's the first step. But that's not the only step. It's not just come to Jesus. It's come and follow me. Come after me. That next step of following Him is just as important as coming to Him. Jesus says, if any man will come after me, he says, when He says, come after me, He's saying He wants us to change the direction that we're going in. He wants us to change some things in our life when we come to Him as Lord and Savior. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. I wish I was. I'm not. Pastor Dave's been serving the Lord since he was like 2 or something. Pastor Dave will be the first to tell you, I'm not perfect. Now, if he hadn't told me that, I might not have known it. But he'll tell you. Connie will for sure tell you if he won't. Look, Connie's even nodding. Pastor Ron's not here to give marriage counseling today. Pastor Ron's celebrating 100 years at Fredonia. The church has been around 100 years. Isn't that awesome? These words literally mean get behind Jesus and follow Him. Jesus is saying to follow Him, we have to literally follow Him. He is the leader. We are the follower. He's the one who's in front, and we're walking in His steps all of the way. Have you ever seen anyone with a bumper sticker that says, God is my co-pilot? Oh, I hate those. I just want to follow those people to wherever they're going and give them a theological lesson. Because God is not our co-pilot. There is no co-pilot. If you are a follower of Christ, God is your pilot, and you're the one that's along for the ride, following wherever He's taking you. There's a difference there. If you're living the Christian life properly, Jesus is leading you, and you are following. You're not saying, I'm going this way, God. You're saying, Lord, I want to go this way. Will you bless it? And if He says no, you're going whatever way He tells you to go. That is following Christ properly. He doesn't ask us to let Him go with us. He says, come to me, follow me. He's in front, we're behind. Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself. Wait a minute, now that's crazy in the world we live in today. I mean, come on. I can be whoever I want to be. I am a 65-year-old man today. Give me my Medicare. Give me my Social Security. Doesn't work that way, does it? Society's about me, me, me. You ever seen on somebody's Facebook post, the YOLO. YOLO, you're like, what in the world is YOLO? Do they mean the little candy that's round? No, that's Rolo. When they say YOLO, they're saying you only live once. So what's that mean? Make all these stupid decisions as long as you're having fun. The consequences, who cares about that? It's your life, go live it. That's the world that we live in today. Everything is me, 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 me. Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself. The truth is, Jesus died for our salvation, not our self-esteem. That's the truth. And salvation is designed to make us holy. It's not designed to make us happy with our self-image. There's a difference. By telling us we have to deny ourselves, Jesus is calling us to deal with ourselves in a difficult way, because now we have to push down some of our wants and some of our desires, and we have to follow His wants and His desires in our life. Jesus is telling us you have to abandon control and you have to give me the control. You have to follow me. Jesus is talking about a lot more than just telling yourself no or depriving yourself. Well, Lord, I really want this Twinkie, but no, I'm going to deny myself today because I want to lose weight and be healthy for you. It's more than that. It's more than saying, oh, I can't do this anymore because I'm a good boy. You ever heard people say that? No, he doesn't go out with us anymore because he's a good boy now. No, it's because I'm a follower of Christ and Jesus is leading me away from those things. And He's leading me to something better. The idea is that you're letting go of your rights, you're letting go of your freedoms, and you're following Him, and you're doing whatever it is that He asks you to do. Isn't that the exact opposite of what our culture tells you? I don't know why anybody would follow what culture tells you these days when you look around at culture and see where it's gotten them. But that's the prevailing mindset. And here's the thing is even Christians have adopted this mentality. And you see it in these things we call megachurches. And I'm not dogging megachurches. They do some good things. They really do. There are some people we can't reach that they can reach. But here's what people do a lot of times that attend these megachurches. They say, I'm going to go here because so-and-so isn't going to ask me where I was last week. I'm invisible in this place. If you're not a part of small groups, if you're not a part of, you can't tell me somebody's not going to know in a 1,500-seat arena your name. Get to some of the bigger ones. Some people have bought out basketball arenas and made them churches. 20, 30, 40,000 people can fit into one. You telling me somebody knows my name there? No, I can slide in. I love the music. I love the light message that they preach, the devotional, whatever they're going to call it, that's 20 minutes long. I want those things because I don't have to change. I'm not saying every church that has a lot of people's like that. Hear me on that, okay? I'm not preaching against mega churches. What I'm preaching against is somebody selecting a church just because they can say they go to church and they're not getting a thing out of that other than they're going to be deaf by the time they're 45. And you're not getting a thing out of that service, but you can say, I attend church. You see, what they do is they go and they consume and they consume and they consume, but they never give back. And that's the difference in a fan and a follower. A follower gives back. A follower doesn't just consume. A follower will give back. You can't give Jesus just some of yourself and say, the rest of this is mine. He says, no, You have to deny yourself. You have to give him every area of your life. He wants followers. If you come after him, he says you have to deny yourself. So if a person gives up the rights over their own life, what do they then become? Who has rights over them? And I think the answer is found a lot in the New Testament. And so in the New Testament, you have the writers who frequently describe themselves as to who or what they are. So for instance, Paul opened Romans, Philippians, and Titus by saying, I, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ. James called himself a servant of Jesus Christ. Peter opens up 2 Peter. He says, I'm a servant. Jude, that's the brother of Jesus. He doesn't say, hey, I'm the brother of Jesus, the half-brother of Jesus. He doesn't say that. He says, no, I am a servant of Christ. And John says the whole book of Revelation, this is who I'm writing to, God's servants. Most of the time, that word servant is the Greek word doulos. You say, who cares? Here's the thing. If you get some of the old Bibles, the word doulos is not best translated servant. But because of what America went through in the mid-1800s with slavery, and because of the atrocities that came out of that, we changed the word to a more politically correct word that is servant. If you want to get right down to it, that word ought to be described slave. It's not a slave like we think of. You know, when we think of slavery, we think the worst. We think of roots and they're just getting beat like. That's not the type of slavery that was going on then. Don't let any atrocities from your mind cloud what the language is. That's not what they did back in those days. In those days, you had people who were bondservants. They were free, but they lived their life, and when they achieved their freedom, they were able to go and they were able to get an awl, and it's a crazy thing, but they were able to get an awl and they were able to put their ear up against a door, and somebody would take that awl and poke a hole through their ear. Isn't that crazy? That's the old-fashioned way of piercing an ear. When you did that, what you're saying is, I realize I'm free, but I'm making myself a slave. I love this so much, I'm making myself a slave. You say, who would ever want to do that? It happened very frequently in those days. When we think of slavery, our mind is clouded by what happened in the United States. That's not the circumstance that was going on here. And so here they willingly surrendered their life to follow the lead of Christ. They say, nothing I have is mine. Everything I have is yours. God, you want to use my resources? Here they are. You just lead me as to where to give. God, you want to use my talents? They're yours. Wherever you want me, I'm going. And they became bondservants to Christ. They became slaves to Christ. And that's what he's doing here. He's calling us to give up every freedom we have, everything that we have, and to give it to him and to follow his lead. Why would somebody choose to be a slave? Here's the answer. They'd only do it if they thought a life as a slave was better than their life not being a slave. And I can guarantee you that a life as a slave to Christ is way better than a life on your own where you're stumbling through and trying to do what you think is best. It's better when God's leading you. In America, we really like the idea of freedom. Boy, we love it, don't we? We're a special class. I mean, those other countries, they're just third world. Why we're privileged. We've got, all these rights. We can speak freely. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. We need those rights. But here's the thing. When you're a servant of Christ, you say, I'm going to give that up. And I'm going to follow Jesus wherever He takes me. If it means He takes me to a mission field where I have none of those rights, I'm giving it up. I'll go where you tell me to go. Jesus said, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. The only crosses people want anything to do with are the ones hanging around our necks. That's not what Jesus is talking about. He says you got to take up your cross daily. What's He talk? The cross is an execution device. Think about that when you're wearing it around. You're wearing an execution device. Think about if in 100 years somebody has an electric chair necklace. Isn't that odd? That's the equivalent of the cross. We need to start thinking of it as that. Because that's what He calls us to do. He calls us to die to ourselves daily. Every single day. Everyone that originally heard Jesus speak those words knew what He was talking about. This is an execution He's asking me to do. This is killing myself. This is what He's asking me to do. Can you imagine that? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who's a German pastor, many of you know his story. He was imprisoned. He was ultimately killed by the Germans. In his book, The Cost of Discipleship, here's what he says. When Christ calls a man, He bids him come and die. Well, I'm sure accepting that offer. It's what He does. That's what He calls us to do. As humans, we don't think there's anything awesome about death. But there is. In Luke 9:24, Jesus said, for whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. In calling us to the cross, He's not trying to kill us. That's not what He's saying. He's not saying be like the guy. Did y'all see the news story of the guy that's crucified himself like 26 years straight or something? It's crazy. It's down in Latin America somewhere. Y'all are looking at me like I'm crazy. Google it. It's there. This guy crucifies himself. That's not what Jesus is talking about. It's not. He's not trying to kill us. What He's trying to do is He's trying to save us. He's trying to save us because He knows that our only hope is to follow Him. Well, that's not too bad if I have to do it once or twice, is it? I think, no, what's He say? Take up your cross when? Daily. Every single day. Well, that doesn't count in election years, right? Yeah, it counts in election years. That doesn't count in certain months. No, it's every single day. The idea that we must die to ourselves. Paul said it actually in 1 Corinthians. He said, I die to myself daily. He said, I die every day. Is how the ESV puts it. Every day that he lived was another opportunity for him to live for Christ. And that's where we need to be. Some of you may be thinking, this isn't what I signed up for. I heard about the cross, but it was just at that Easter message. The only person that died on the cross was Jesus. I didn't know I had to put myself on a cross. And no one said anything about that. And here's the problem. It's the fault of a lot of churches. That's what we preach. Come to the altar. Oh, you are so good. You can go do what you want now the rest of your life. We have this cheap watered down gospel. We say all you got to do is come and pray a prayer, you're good. And the church has watered the gospel down, but that's not how Jesus ever intended it. He wants you to be transformed through a life of discipleship, through a life of sacrifice, through a life of pushing yourself down and letting Him live more in you. That's what He's asking for. He doesn't call us to be perfect. Hear me on that. He calls us to be honest with ourselves and to be repentant when we mess up and to push ourselves down and to allow Him to take more and more of us. That's a process we call sanctification. Jesus calls us to be more of a fan. Be more than a fan, He calls us to be a follower. He calls us to embrace His call to follow Him. And you look around today, there are a lot of fans of Jesus. But how many followers are there? Jesus doesn't want people to be supporters of Him. Do you know Jesus has a Facebook page? I don't somehow think it's really His, but there is a Facebook page called Jesus. He's got like 5 million likes. Way more than my 650 or whatever. He's got a lot of friends. He's got a lot of fans. How many of those are followers? Kyle Idleman said this: the biggest threat to the church today is fans who call themselves Christians but aren't actually interested in following Christ. They want to be close enough to Jesus to get all the benefits, but not so close that it requires anything from them. In other words, yeah, I'm coming to the altar to get that healing, but wait, what now? You want me to greet somebody and say hello to them? No, I'm out. I want what you give me, Jesus. I don't want to do anything. That's what we see today. Following Jesus will cost you something, he says. Following Jesus will always cost you something. See, I'm still not sure the difference in a fan and a follower. Let's look at one more biblical example. We'll do it quick. John 6. Let me just set the stage. Jesus has just fed 5,000 people from a little boy's fish and bread that he had packed for himself that day. He's fed 5,000, now get this, men. That doesn't count the women, that doesn't count the children. He's fed all these people, and the people were so impressed by what Jesus had done. They tried to make Him their king. Jesus backed off because, remember, as we saw in the last sermon series, wasn't His time yet. He backed off. The disciples go on over. Jesus comes walking on the water to them. And so that's where this picks up. It's now the next day. And so the crowd finds Jesus. They track Him down. They don't cross the lake. They go around the lake. They find Him. They track Him down. And they're wanting some more food. Because Jesus was a good cook, apparently. He was a good multiplier. And they're like, man, we want some more of that. And Jesus says, you're here for the wrong thing. And in John 6:26, Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on Him God the Father has set His seal. They were looking for a free lunch, and Jesus says, guess what, fellas? The buffet line is shut down. It's past 2 o'clock. We're not serving you. I'm sorry. You're not getting the food. He says, stop thinking about the food. It's not about that. It's about eternal life. And they just continued to miss the point. It goes on for several verses. They missed the point. Don't blame them. Aren't we all guilty of that? Don't we all miss the point quite frequently? They just keep asking for food. And so Jesus tells them about the bread of God that gives life to the world. And they're like, well, give us some of that. And here's what Jesus says in John 6:35. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. Well, that's not what they wanted to hear. And it says in there the people started to grumble. Don't you love grumblers? We're going to talk about that the last week of this series. They wanted real food. They wanted their Red Lobster with the cheesy bread. I'm sure that's what he blessed it to, right? I don't care for seafood from Red Lobster, but a lot of people do. They're not happy. They're grumbling. So what does Jesus do? Well, hang on just a minute. Let me change my message to keep you here. Let me tell you, no, I'm not the bread. Let me just whip you up some food. No, not what he does. He doesn't change his message at all, does he? John 6:53, Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink." Okay, that's enough. Not only is the buffet line closed, now you're telling us we're supposed to eat you. We're supposed to be cannibals now. Man, he's talking crazy. What's he thinking? And watch what happens. Look at John 6:66. Does that seem weird to you that that's in there? It's like we don't have 7 floor in a building because that's bad luck. It's like we ought to have John 6, verse 66. Just get rid of that. But make it 67. Skip 60. But look at this, because it's interesting. What's 666? Mark of the beast. These people are kind of have an antichrist spirit here. Watch this. Verse 66 says, "After this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him." So they're like, okay, that's it. I'm out. That's enough of this nonsense. I'm leaving. So Jesus said to the 12, "Do you want to go away as well?" And here's what Simon Peter said. He said, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life, and we have believed and have come to know that you are the Holy One of God." The fans deserted him. Yesterday they were trying to make him king, but now he doesn't meet their expectations. Now they're gone. Who's left? The followers. They said, "Where are we going to go? You're the only one that gives us eternal life. Where are we going to go?" It wasn't the size of the crowd that Jesus cared about. Do you catch that? It was the hearts of the people who were following him. That's what he wanted. Are you a follower of Jesus, or are you just a fan? That's the question. Are you an enthusiastic admirer? And it's not that being a fan is bad. It's not. But for Jesus, it's just not enough. It falls short of his expectation for your life. You can admire Jesus even enthusiastically, but it doesn't mean that you're following him. Fans are fine. Followers change the world. We see that as we get into the book of Acts. Would you rather? Would you rather be a fan? Would you rather be a follower? You say, "I'm not sure I still see the difference." Fans are in it for themselves. Followers are in it for God. Fans want to get a blessing. Followers want to be a blessing. Fans want the benefits. Followers just want Jesus. Fans dabble. Followers are all in. Fans believe they have it all together. Followers are a work in progress. Fans start well. Followers finish well. Fans come and go. Followers stay. Fans are fickle. Followers are faithful. Fans make a one-time decision. Followers make a lifelong commitment. Fans know about Jesus. Followers know Jesus. Fans have a knowledge about Jesus. Followers have an intimacy with Jesus. Fans follow rules. Followers have a relationship. Fans focus on guilt. Followers focus on grace. Fans talk about what we're against. Followers talk about who we're for. Fans are about laws. Followers are about love. Fans see the future with fear and uncertainty. Followers see the future with joy and a peace that passes all understanding. How can I go from a fan to a follower? And the short answer is only by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God. Only by surrendering yourself every single day. You say, I missed a couple of days. We all do. Here's what you do. Jesus, I'm sorry I went this way. I see that you're back over here. Forgive me. You're leading me again. And you turn around and you follow Him. We turn to God in humble surrender. We turn to God in a... It's not that we never mess up. It's our attitude when we mess up. You get that? It's like with your kids. Man, I expect my kids to mess up. They're in the nursery, so I can say that when they're not up here. I expect them. They're teenagers, right? Which of us was the perfect teenager? If you raise your hand, the lesson next week's on pride. None of us. And so, yes, I'll punish my kids when they mess up. But there's forgiveness and grace too. And it's the attitude after that I'm looking for. Same way in court. When I have people come in, their license is expired. They keep driving, they get a ticket. They come in, they say, yeah, my license was expired. How do you want to plead to that charge? Guilty? Okay, wait a minute. You understand, if you plead guilty to that charge, your license is now suspended for 6 months or a year, and you are going to get a whole bunch more of these and see me a lot more than I really care to see you. Not that I don't like you, but I don't want you in my court all the time. So would you like to maybe do something different? There's a grace. There's a mercy there because their attitude is, yeah, I messed up and I just want to fix that. And I say, but you don't want all these consequences. Let's change this. Let's do something different. That's what we're looking for. The attitude. You will make mistakes. God does not call us to be perfect, but He calls us to be genuine and honest and repentant. That's what He calls us to do. You can make a decision in a moment, but following Him takes a lifetime. But it starts with a decision to go from fan to follower. John, would you come? You've got to make a decision to start. Boy, aren't we the kings of I'll start next Monday. I'll start Wednesday. I'll start after whatever's going on in my life calms down. Guess what happens? Remember, we saw it in another series, the Revelation series. 30 years later, they're still facing the same problems. Why? Because they never made that decision. They never said, today's the day. God, today is the day. Tired of being a fan. Being a fan's great, but I want to do more. I'm ready to be a follower.